Okay, let's call to order today's Ways and Means Committee meeting for December 13th, 2022. It's now 3:32. And again, please, I want to remind everyone that this meeting is being transmitted live via video stream, and people who would like to watch it should remember that it's on www.orangecountygov.com. Click the tab for the legislature and locate the meeting on the calendar. Please also remember to silence your cell phones, tablets, or other electronic devices. And remember that the microphones here are very sensitive, so we don't want to pick up any cross traffic talking. At this time, would we please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. First up, Alan? Or, I'm sorry, correct. Carry on, roll call, please.
Anagnestakis, Marissa, O'Donnell,
Here.
Ryan.
Here, sorry.
Martel. Here. Padu, Cheney,
Here.
Benton.
Here.
2 hours.
All right. Any phone calls from those two about possibly being late or anything, or
Anagnestakis, no.
not at all?
But you
Okay,
can inform the chairman that he's going to be away.
all right. Okay, so up first, Alan Sorensen, Commissioner of Planning or Department. Here from that department? This is a special insert, so I expected them to be here. They could be running late, so we'll go on. Okay. Number 2, Community College. Paul? I was informed that Dr. Young couldn't be here and you were
Yes.
going to
Unfortunately.
have an assistant yourself.
Yes, she took ill and was not able to
Welcome.
come in today, so I'm pinch hitting and I believe you've met Corey Dawkins.
Of course.
Director of
Absolutely.
Facilities.
Welcome.
He
Welcome.
will be assisting.
Okay, so A is request to authorize the college's use of an unencumbered funds. Said funds are associated with completed capital project 278, the Middletown Campus Project, and are in the amount of $633,511. The college requests to use these funds for a new building management system to improve control of the HVAC equipment on the Middletown and Newburgh campuses. Total cost of the project is estimated to be $1.3 million. The other half of funding is to come from existing appropriation through the State of New York Capital Construction Fund. Upon approval, a new capital project will be created. Motion and a second, please.
So moved.
O'Donnell and Cheney. Tortel. Gentlemen.
Okay, thank you. Well, this is, I know, one that you prefer because there's no new money involved. That is using money that has been sitting there for quite some time. The project's involved with the building of the Raleigh Science Center and the Morrison Lab School, our daycare center. And that goes back quite some number of years. And apparently there were donor funds involved and there were bond funds involved. And some of the donor funds never got applied to the project when allocating across the expenses. It was a project run by whatever the appropriate organization is in the county. So I don't have any knowledge of how it came to be that these funds are still there. But the good news is, had they been bond funds, they would have run out. We would not be able to use it, whereas now they are. They've been asked to use it, and we have an ideal solution. The building management systems, as you know, they control all the HVAC equipment, and proper management of those things, we can run much more energy efficiently and save money as well. The college has building management systems. Unfortunately, we have at least 4 of them, and it might be 5, controlling various parts of the campuses, and the systems don't talk to each other. So what we're proposing to do here is to replace those existing systems that are reaching the end of their lives with one system that can control all the buildings on both campuses. We anticipate enjoying significant savings plus an improvement in the the environment of the buildings. So we are very happy to ask for your permission to use those funds.
Mr. Cheney.
I think you're unclear as to the source of those funds. In other words, are those funds donor funds that were received from the donors?
They were donor funds, but the problem was there were multiple projects run at the same time under one project. So some of the donor funds went specifically to the Rowley Center and some went specifically to the Morrison Center. We have no way of knowing which ones these are. So the fact, from the donor's perspective, clearly their gifts had meaning. I mean, the buildings are built. They're standing today. And everybody is aware of that. But there is no way to determine who the donors were for those particular funds.
I just, have a question of whether those donors need to be notified or.
We went through this with our foundation because the donations would have come through the foundation. And it was the executive director of the foundation's opinion when she understood the commingling of the funds and the fact that we weren't the ones who allocated money against the invoices that caused these funds to be left over, that she felt it was legitimate for us to use them for, whatever benefit to the college.
Deb?
Legislator Newton called me about this. This is a project that's well over 10 years old. And my only concern was, were the donor funds restricted to a certain project? I've been working with finance to see if we can find any documentation on that. To date, we're still working on that.
And I know we had conversations earlier in this process. We've been debating how to do this for over a year. And neither at your end nor at our end could we find anything specific on these donations.
Okay. Yeah, obviously we were going to reach out to the legislature next to see if there was any documentation.
Those funds came from the donor to the foundation and then the foundation to support the projects.
Correct.
Thank you.
Ms. O'Donnell?
Right. So obviously, some of those funds, will be used for those two buildings you previously stated.
Yes.
So those donors will still be going partially to those same two.
Correct.
Right.
Right, we'll cover work within those buildings.
Thank you.
Ms. Hotel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On a technical question of it is, when you install this system, are you going to make sure that it's going to be able to be remote accessed via either iPhone, iPad, or cellular phone?
Absolutely.
That's one of the main objectives.
That is where you can really
That-
achieve the savings.
That's what I was going to say, that. Have you looked into LEEDS certified systems that would help you even manage it a little better?
We have looked into that. Basically, we're using the vendor Day Automation. Day Automation, their equipment is mostly in the Middletown campus. The two buildings in Newburgh really don't have any Day Automation equipment. So we're going to be consolidating, but Day Automation also uses LEED certification technologies. So it's a hope that we'll be able to get some type of certification out of it.
Now, this particular vendor, which is obviously the company so big, it would need to probably go out to a bid or RFP with this particular vendor, or down an approved vendor list that precludes that from going out to an RFP, or will you still be putting it out for an RFP?
We actually did an RFP for these guys. They're on state contracts.
That's a.
Yeah.
approved
So,
vendor.
yeah, we've used them in other areas as well. And because they're on state contract, we've been able to have success with them.
Right. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay. Madam Chair, any questions?
There have been some very good questions raised as far as, since this is something that we don't normally do, and why wasn't the money spent a long time ago and things like that. So we're just figuring out the best way to give you a recommendation as to how to proceed. Because I know afterwards I did receive a call, as did Deb, from the chair of AD, Mr. Menuda, and he had some major concerns that we wanted further explanation. We don't have enough explanation here today. We may want to table it.
So basically, we saved money on those other projects, and this is leftover balance.
Or we overbounded.
Yeah, like I said.
Yeah.
Right. And again, the way it normally works, from what I understand, is as invoices are being paid, it's being deleted from the donor funds first is the normal practice. And so that if there are any leftover funds at the end, it's bond funds. But for whatever reason, that didn't happen 10 years ago. These funds have been sitting in limbo ever since.
Hold on a second. You're fine?
I'm fine.
Okay. Deb, are you fine?
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Totano?
Was this tabled in,
No, it was
E&E, so it did pass?
it was passed, but the chairman voted no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Excuse me, the first part of this, that the chair voted in favor, it was part B that he voted against.
I did not. We voted no on one. Anyway.
Okay, well, that's okay.
Thank you. That's okay. Thank you.
But it passed.
That's.
It did pass, yes. And I believe Mr. Markland is correct. I believe it was the second portion of it that, because it had to do with the roofing.
Correct.
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
So just to be clear, this project was not over bonded 10 years ago. For some reason, you used donor money, which left over. That's all that's happening. Thank you.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Carrie Ann, roll call?
Russia,
Yes.
O'Donnell,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Marcel,
Yes.
Cheney,
Yes.
Benton.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. B, request supplemental appropriation to fund 2022 capital projects listed as library cooling tower piping, Middletown, $350,000. Phase 1, Morrison Hall and Horton Hall, $1 million. Library chiller replacement, Middletown, $420,000. Asbestos removal, $275,000 to now total $2,045,000. These are proposed projects 66, 67, and 68. Phase 1 Morrison Hall and Horton Hall is replacing number 69 in the 22 capital plan. This is a request for bonding, one half of the cost at this time. The other half of the funding is to come from the State of New York Capital Construction Fund. Upon approval, 4 new projects will be created for a total amount of $1,022,500. Motion and a second, please, for
So
discussion. Mr.
Second.
Cheney, second Tortel. Gentlemen?
Okay, this one is a little more complicated. We put through our original capital project list, earlier in the process as we normally would. And on that list was number, I believe it was 69 that you made reference to. It was the same $1 million figure, but it was specifically for a roof replacement on Horton Hall. Horton Hall was the carriage house for the original mansion that sits on the property. And we were experiencing significant roof leaks there. So that was what we put in for originally. As you may be aware, since that time, we have developed fairly significant roof leaks in the mansion itself, Morrison Hall. And it got to the point where we were experiencing leaks coming through the plaster in the ceilings and on the walls, and a number, not, it wasn't coming in rivers, but there were something like 28 separate areas where the plaster was penetrated by the water. The problem that this creates is, again, this building dates back to 1900 to 1902, I believe, was when it was built. And all of that plastic contains asbestos. So as the water comes in from behind, as long as it's sealed, there's no issue. But when the water comes in from behind and goes through the plastic, it carries the asbestos with it. And as it dries, you now have the potential of friable asbestos in the atmosphere in the building. So out of an abundance of caution, we moved everybody out of the building at the beginning of this semester. and worked with a company to establish a remediation plan for the areas that need remediation. And that's a good thing. However, it doesn't address the fundamental problem, which are the roof leaks. And what was concerning us was, given the amount of time it takes to get the money appropriated for a major project like this, because this would not be inexpensive. We do the remediation, we put people back in there, the roof continues to leak, we end up with recreating the problem essentially. So while we were wrestling with that conundrum, we became aware of a technology that's been used successfully in many building projects, particularly with historic buildings, which is essentially a building wrapping. And I was not familiar with this until we got involved with this discussion. But essentially what they do is they build a building around the building with scaffolding, and then they wrap that, not terribly dissimilar to what happens with boats in the winter where you see them wrapped up. The nice thing about the way it's done with the essentially building around the building is once it's in place, everything is watertight and you can use the building. So you can go in and out. And when they actually do the roof replacement, they can do that under the
Well, the roof's in
building.
place.
Well, yeah, so it has a lot of merit, and the thing that is most important is they guarantee that the process will hold up even in bad weather and whatnot for at least 36 months. And that 3-year period is enough time for us to do the engineering, which would be required to understand what we have to do to replace the roof, and then to actually do the project. Multiple projects. The roof in Horton, the roof at Morrison, and there's also a masonry issue at Morrison that while we're addressing all of this, we should address that as well to maintain the integrity of the building. So what we decided to do was to ask for permission to repurpose the $1 million from this capital project that we had originally submitted to allow it to be used for the cost of the wrapping of the building and the cost of the engineering of the roof replacement projects and the masonry project. At that point, we would come back, once the engineering is done, we would understand the scope of the problem and the cost of the problem. We would come back in a phased approach to make the necessary repairs. Now, just to give you an idea, prior to COVID, I believe it was 2019, we engaged a consulting firm to look at Morrison Hall roof and Morrison Hall masonry envelope and 2 separate projects. And they came back at that time with recommendations. Now, this was not a detailed engineering study, so it was a preliminary engineering study. But their recommendations at the time were to replace the roof in its entirety. And they had recommendations for the masonry. And at that time, they were projecting costs and I don't remember exactly, Corey does have them here, but I believe one was around $2.5 million and the other one was around $3 million. So we're talking about major money. And as you can imagine, those numbers have only gone up since 2019. So we envision, and this is just based on discussions with the firm that did the original study and the firm that's looking at some of the other remediation stuff, what this project might max out at if to do the whole shebang. And the number is $10 million. So we're not, we recognize this is not an insignificant request. Obviously, the state would be paying for half. The county would be paying for half. We have had discussions with the county exec and the deputy county exec, and there's hope that some of the county PERF funds may be able to be used to offset the cost of this. But at this point, we're not asking for the whole shebang because we don't know what that's going to look like yet. But The only way we'll know is to do the engineering. So hence, we're here asking to repurpose that $1 million for this, for the wrapping and the engineering. Happy to answer questions.
So you're talking about a wrapping like this, or are you gonna put a tent over top of it, like
It's
it's
a-
a picture before?
The second to last slide shows the tent. The last slide is an option that we presented, which is a photorealistic rendering of the building. There were some concerns about how the building was wrapped in a white box.
Yeah, it would look much nicer if we could do the rendition. In fact, I think one of them, I don't know whether it's the one that's in there, the Waldorf Astoria was a building that was wrapped this way, and they did the photorealistic wrapping, so it really looked like the iconic Waldorf Astoria. But
This looks like a very difficult building to wrap neatly.
it is, will have its challenges. That's why the cost is high. We do have an estimate to, whatever the cost is, the difference to do the photorealistic was something on the order of $128,000. And I couldn't see spending that money for that. I mean, yes, aesthetically it would be nicer, but that's a large amount of money.
Yeah, that's basically shrink wrapping with picture on it, rather than just clear shrink wrapping.
Correct.
Ms. Totel.
Thank you. Okay, so you've gone back and forth between the mansion and the old stables, which is Morrison Hall, correct?
The mansion is Morrison Hall.
And then
The
the stable,
stables are
Horton.
Horton Hall, okay, excuse me. So are you, because phase one on here lists for $1 million, Morrison Hall and Horton Hall. So the extent of that $1 million is to wrap both of those buildings?
No, we're only going to wrap Morrison.
Okay,
The problem is not as significant at Horton. But the repairs would include both buildings. So in that $10 million estimate is the roof repair for Morrison, the roof repair, or excuse me, roof replacement for Morrison, the roof replacement for Horton, and the masonry repair at Morrison. So all three major projects will be done.
okay, but that's not in this amount. That's
No.
what this amount is to get the engineering studies and what, and the
And the
plan.
wrapping.
And the
the
wrapping.
But the engineering would be of the projects for both buildings.
Okay. But when you originally presented your capital project during budget time for Horton Hall, you had indicated that that roof was leaking severely. What has changed? I understand, never mind, excuse me, I understand what's changed, but the issue with Horton Hall. However,
We-
how are you going to mitigate any further damage?
We have had roof repairs done on both buildings, actually, but they've been more successful on the Horton building. So the leaks that were causing the majority of the problem don't seem to be as significant right now, but eventually we still have to do it. But that was the extent of the leaking in Morrison Hall was greater.
Okay, and then when you're looking at the photo of the president's office, evidence of existing repairs, I see like it looks like a piece of sheet rock, some type of board screwed up into the ceiling there. When you're looking at the estimates, because that plaster work, even unfortunately contains asbestos, but is historically significant to the architecture of the building and to the history of the building.
Yes.
Will
you're right.
that be replaced with an architectural comparison or exact replica?
We would be using companies that recognize and are certified to do historic building work. Now, with regard to the specific question of what's going to happen in the president's office, you are correct. That was so bad. There was some temporary work done there a few years ago. But whether we will be able to restore that entirely remains to be seen. Is that
I
fair
would
to
like
say,
to make-
Tori?
That's fair to say. I mean, what we're gonna do is, prior to doing any restoration of the interior, we have a company that can take photos of the existing work in the ceilings, on the walls, and they can make exact copies of the
With a digital photo as opposed to a casting?
Well, they use resin, like a resin material.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to highly recommend. If you don't plan on replacing the casting immediately as part of this process, which I would encourage you to do so because of the historical significance, I'm going to strongly recommend that you obtain castings from anything prior to removing it so that it can be replaced either during this project or in another
Someday.
phase of the project.
Excellent
Because that would
suggestion.
be a disaster, a historic disaster to me for one of the most beautiful buildings in Orange County.
Exactly.
Lose that detail. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
One final comment that I should have made in my intro. That roof was replaced, the one on Morrison Hall, in the 90s.
Yeah, it says it here.
And it was supposed to have been either a 100-year or a 150-year roof. And this caught the attention of Chair Menuda in the E&E committee and his background in architecture. And so we have pulled out all of the documentation associated with that project. And we've digitized it all so that we have access to it. And we will be investigating what options do we have with regard to the folks that did the work, because it wasn't known at the time the work was done, but what has subsequently been learned is that when they did that roof repair, they used a technique that should not have been used, and they penetrated the roof membrane all over the place. And so any one of those, now that they've been there 30 years and they're starting to give, any one of those penetrations is a leak potential.
Mhm.
And where it goes in isn't necessarily where
Where
it
it shows
shows
up.
out. And we all understand that. So it's an issue, and whether we have standing with those vendors remains to be seen, but at least we have all of the documentation associated with that.
And it sounds like it's time to get started. So any other questions? If not, all in favor?
Chairman, I was just asking.
Oh,
Do we have insurance to cover any of these questions? I mean, that should be a lifetime roof. I mean, that's a Spanish terracotta or blue, whatever. They do a lot of that. I know in Orlando, Florida, and a lot throughout.
sounds like that's a question for the law department.
And I'm not even sure who carries that insurance, whether it be the county or us. We carry some insurance, but you're the owners of the building, so you carry some as well, I believe. And there are others in the room.
More errors and omissions of the contractor or the roofer at the time he was
Yeah.
doing it. So. Anything else? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you for such a explanation.
Thank you. Has the date been set for the full legislative meeting in January?
January 5th is our meeting.
Reorganization meeting?
No, where the two committee recommendations will be voted on.
Thursday.
This could be
This
Thursday.
Thursday? Oh,
Thursday.
that's good to know.
We will be there.
What time did you say?
10 o'clock.
10 a.m.
10 a.m.
Fair, excellent.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Sorensen.
My apologies for not
No
being-
problem at all. Okay, so go back to number 1, which is a request to accept and appropriate 2022 New York State DOT Federal 5311 funds in the amount of $330,000 and accept 2023 funds in the amount of $337,000 to be appropriated in 2023. The 5311 program provides formula funding to states for the purpose of supporting public transportation in areas with non-urban population of less than 50,000. The current application is for federal fiscal years 2021 to 2023. Funds will be used for the operating assistance payments to the municipal transit operators. The total application amount is $667,000. Then again, as specified, $330,000 for fiscal year 2022 and $337,000 for fiscal year 2023. Motion in a second, please.
Second.
Brescia, Tortel. Alan.
Mr. Chairman, this is funding that the county has utilized for quite a number of years. It goes to support the battle bus services that are in the towns of Warwick, City of Port Jervis, Town of Goshen, and Town of Montgomery. And this is a pass-through through our transit orange, and then the municipalities pick up the local match.
Okay, Ms. Tortel.
You've only mentioned 4 communities that this grant is serving. I know there's style buses and several others. Is that through
Yeah.
a separate funding source?
That is a separate funding source. That's our 5307.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we weren't cutting it down to only 4 communities for, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Questions from committee members? Madam Chair, any questions?
I do have a comment though.
Sure.
I wanted to thank you because this was something that was on the rules agenda. And we did have to cancel those meetings, so I appreciate you putting it on this.
Never a problem. We can wrap up anything at the
Thank you.
first session.
We apologize to Alan for the inconvenience, sorry.
Well, it wasn't in it. Yeah, I just was too deep into a project.
So
It's
it's
okay.
a help.
All right, hearing no questions, all in favor as presented?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you. Quick.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Lawrence. Number 3, request for approval and supplemental appropriation of funds for a proposed capital expenditure for roofing replacement. Sounds familiar. The roofing system in the Kaiser building from 2002 and the Simon building from 1997 are reaching economic life. This is proposed capital project number 106 in the 2022 capital plan. Upon approval, a new capital project will be created. The amount to be $3,600,000. Funds to come from bonding. Motion and a second, please.
So move.
Total, second. O'Donnell. Lawrence.
We heard it was roofing day, so we asked to be on the agenda, so. Not much more to add. This is the roof replacement for the Kaiser building, as it mentions here, 2002, and the Simon building, 1997. We got a rough estimate from Fusco that should be attached. Obviously, this will go out to bid, and we'll see what the pricing comes in after it does go out to bid, but we have to, for budgeting purposes, we need some kind of a ballpark figure, and this is what we got.
Okay. Anticipated life of these roofs? Any idea, or is that going to be in the bid?
For the new roof?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm sure that will be in the bid, but I'm not sure where the appropriate anticipated life of a new roof is.
Okay. Questions from committee members? Hearing none, all in favor as presented? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Any updates to share about Valley View? Well, we've got a minute or two.
Unfortunately, no. We still have 3 units closed. We are accepting admissions. We are taking admissions, short-term and long-term admissions.
How's that going?
It's going fine. Our census is 50, what is our census today? I just
That's all right.
blank. But anyway, it's still low, 64%, I think it is. We're plugging along and doing the best that we can.
Okay.
So.
Great.
Yeah.
Tough situation.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On to 4. Travis. Okay, so am I supposed to read just as it is here?
You can read it as it is there, but there is a little bit of shifting that needs to be explained afterwards.
Okay, which Mr. Cheney is going to do, or you?
I believe Travis can
Travis?
speak to it,
Okay.
and then any clarification can come from me.
Okay, very good. So this is a request to amend resolution number 257 of 2022 to incorporate New York State DOT Bridge New York resolution language and funds to come from bonding. Motion in a second, please.
So move.
Patel, second. I'll second. Travis.
Thank you. So this is a Bridge New York project on County Route 51 over the Crumline Creek. I believe it was in September. We were before the committees to get approved for the design funding from this. Bridge New York is 95% grant, 5% local. After the resolution was approved, we submitted it to the state to move forward with executing our design contract, and they came back and said that the additional language had to be in that resolution. And initially, we thought that we could modify the bond resolution to include that language, but after conversations with the state and with bond counsel, looks like we need a new bond or a new resolution that incorporates their language that they need. It's a requirement of the Bridge New York grant.
Okay, so Betsy, did you want to give an explanation? Because this was different than what was passed at physical yesterday.
Sure. So yesterday at physical, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I invite the law department to correct me if I'm wrong as well. Yesterday at physical, we had the objective that the Department of Public Works was looking to enforce here was basically ineffectual through amending the bond resolution. We found that out afterward. Once we found out that the bond council was unable to amend the resolution. So to effectuate basically what Travis is looking to do, we would have to do a separate resolution, which we received a copy of today that everyone has in
Which is
hand.
what Carrie Ann
Yes.
handed out.
So that will be what we will be voting on today.
Okay.
So essentially yesterday's vote, if Barry wants to speak to that, because we did speak about it earlier prior to this meeting, that yesterday's vote, because it does not effectuate what the Department of Public Works is looking to do in amending the resolution, you can't actually amend the bond resolution. It has to be done through the separate resolution altogether.
So basically, just Thursday, it will be withdrawn,
Thursday, the motion that was passed by Physical Services will be withdrawn.
and this will be hopefully in place for us to then
This will be
vote
the one
on
that will be moving forward.
appropriately. Yes.
But the motion that we've presented here is the same motion that was passed in physical, so.
Well, I read it the same. That's why I asked, what
Yeah.
should I read?
So at this,
Should we withdraw or vote on the motion no, and then go to the other?
we can do that, yes.
Okay,
That way it'll be a clean record.
okay, but I thought I was doing this one.
No,
We didn't read that.
we
No,
didn't, we
okay.
haven't read that one yet.
Okay, right, okay. Okay, so basically, we take no action on this.
Call the question, we'll vote.
Yes.
Okay, Carrie Ann, roll call.
Brenda,
Yes.
No,
No,
I'm sorry.
it should be no.
I'm sorry, no. Move over.
Move over.
Connell,
Sleep, no, sorry.
Hines.
No.
Yes.
Tortel,
No,
Cheney,
No,
Benton.
No. Okay, so now I'll read the correct one. So this, again, now is a new resolution authorizing the implementation and funding of 100% of the cost of a transportation project which may be eligible for federal aid and or state aid or reimbursement from Bridge New York State funds.
so moved.
second.
Same explanations?
Same excellent. Would you like me to go through again or?
No, I don't think so. I just want to make sure that law is happy with the way we did it.
Legislative council is law.
I wasn't briefed on this, I don't know.
Okay, well, legislative council, Betsy
I
says
did
it's okay.
speak with law earlier today via
Mhm.
email, and it seems that everyone is on board with moving forward in this way.
Okay,
Yes.
very good. Questions from legislators? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Betsy, for doing all the legwork to make sure we get it done right.
Of course.
Thank you.
Oh, next up, general services. This is a request to adopt intergovernmental agreement for the provision of endpoint protection and response services provided by New York State for use and consumption by New York counties at no cost. Motion in a second, please.
Second.
Benton, Hines, and Tortel. Or Brescia, Hines, and Tortel. Welcome.
Hello,
Your first official,
official, yes.
Yes. welcome.
I'm Sam. This is very easy. This is New York State has purchased a cybersecurity program that it's offering to all of the counties for free. And that's the software, the implementation and the training. And it's just another layer of cybersecurity, which is very important to us, obviously, these days.
Okay, so that was my question. This is another layer, but is it going to replace anything that we've already
So I'm
talked
gonna
about in our capital plan and?
I'm gonna liken that to, you can never have enough layers. You go out in the cold with your jacket on, you don't take off the shirt underneath. The more layers, the better. But we really would not know if this will replace anything until it gets up and running. It might just be yet another layer. I don't know that it would, but if it could replace something that we would pay for, of course, we would obviously go with the free version.
Okay.
But that
So,
wouldn't be able to be known until it was up and running.
so what is the state saying about it though?
Can I interject on that, Sam?
Sure.
Yes.
Is that okay, Chairman?
Yeah, come on up.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon.
Yeah.
So I was at the conference when all this took place. That's why I'm privy
Yes.
to it, Sam. That was it. So this is not in replacement. This is in addition to. We already have fabulous security that takes care of all of our endpoints, your iPads, your phones, your desktops, whatever connects into the county is an endpoint. So we already are protected with the software that's phenomenal. This is New York State's way of just trying to offer something as they're trying to grasp and get a handle of their cybersecurity. So they have contracted with this vendor. They're offering it to all the other counties within the state. So we are just one of them. This is in addition to, so we already have a layer. This is going to be on top of it, on top of everything, but it's not going to cost us anything. And it's definitely not going to replace anything. We have a top of the line platform in place. So we're just going to take advantage of all the other modules that might do a little bit extra on the other side for us.
Okay, so I've heard it before, like specifically with the coroner's office. Oh yeah, it's free and it's gonna be free. If it turns out that this costs sometime in the future with fees or services or something like that, then we can just dump it if we want
We don't
to.
need to have it, right? It's one or the other. So it's just, we want to be part of the rest of the counties doing it as well.
Mr. O'Donnell,
So is this gonna be redundancy or is it gonna be attached to what we have? The reason I ask that is just because it's New York State, if something happens to New York State's new system here, is it gonna infect what we have now? Or is this a redundant layer?
That's excellent. That's an excellent question because that's part of the concern. That's why we don't want it to replace. It's an extra layer.
It has nothing to do with.
That's
what
exactly
we
right.
have.
Very good question though.
I was used to be in charge of IT.
Did you? Really? I didn't know that. Okay.
Nobody believes that.
Good to know.
well,
All right.
we weren't hacked during that time, so.
Which is a miracle.
Ms. Totel.
Thank you. I don't know which one can answer this question, but when we had the discussion or budget with the capital projects, it was indicated, what was it, 10 million that was the project for cybersecurity?
Correct.
10 million, and you're saying that this, has that started implementation? Has that 10 million started to be allocated? Because you're saying we have top of the line now, but yet we're going for another huge chunk, $10 million for cybersecurity, and then we're gonna have this free cybersecurity on top of that. So I'm trying to get a better.
Yeah, just so you understand, the $10 million is more, excuse me, for the infrastructure, the legacy, the stuff, the things that have to be upgraded that have been there, that haven't been there. It's part of a whole entire project plan. It's not like individual software of cybersecurity implementations. It's actually addressing all the legacy that we have in place and bringing them up to speed, whether it be the servers, applications that departments are using. So it's the 10 million is part of a larger plan, which will be presented in executive session to everyone when
Right.
we're ready to do that. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I just was
Is that
trying to get.
helpful?
Yeah, absolutely
Okay.
helpful. I was trying to get a little clarification on that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Yes. Carrie, sales tax update. I know that's a limited report, but
So we sent out to you, there was only one payment when this paperwork was due to your legislative office, so that could hit committee.
Mhm.
Honestly, we received another payment this morning, so I will send out the same spreadsheet to the chairwoman and to the committee.
what did we get?
Wow, which way? Wait. You're like my kids, relax. So the first payment in December, we were $4.2 million over budget, or 30% over budget. And the payment that we received today, was $788,000 $1,000 over budget, which is 26%. So year to date, we are still at 29.85% over budget.
No, I just meant, actually, what was the total payment that we received today?
The total payment that we received today, sure. That was $3,776,001.62. That's the county portion.
Mm,
And the full portion of that payment was $5,129,541.
wow. Okay. Still good news, sales tax.
So
wise.
far, yes.
Yep. Santa's shopping.
Well, we'll have one more payment. And then we have the accrual and stuff in the back. So it's still good news. I mean, if you go out, I mean, I was out honestly this weekend, the stores were booming, things are booming around here.
Ms. Tortel?
Thank you. Will you be able to include with us a new distribution list for municipalities, how much they're getting out of this portion?
Well, she said that the difference, it's the difference between the
Well, I
5.1
understand
and
it, but usually-
3.7.
Oh, so
The breakdown that we sometimes get.
So yes, so in January 31st, we make a sales tax distribution to the municipalities. I can share that with you. And then the surplus payment, I have to come back to the table. You guys have to vote on that, and that goes out around mid-February.
Okay.
We make that
yeah.
payment. So yeah, of course, I'll be happy to share that. I don't have that information now.
Okay, that's fine.
Too soon to collate that.
Exactly.
We usually get that quarter.
So you get that quarterly, and then the surplus I'll bring back to the table with the information, what's going to each municipality. And you'll vote on that. It'll have to go to Phil, and then we'll wait, and then the distributions will go out about a week after that you guys, whatever that is. Prove it. Thank you.
A fortunate surplus.
Exactly.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Have a great holiday, guys.
You too. Next up, Deb from Budget. Deb Slazinski. Update.
So basically, state aid, our federal aid, and our other revenues are all up significantly. State aid is up 13.8 million, federal aid is 13.3, and other revenues 33.1 million, and that is significantly due to the sales tax that we did receive. I can tell you, on Wednesday, I took off, I was in Woodbury Commons, and on a Wednesday, the place was packed. It was unbelievable. Personal services and benefits are up 5.4 million. We do have 355 funded vacant positions. That is an increase of 4 positions from last month.
How many was that again?
355.
355? Okay.
And our contractual expenses are up 13.6 million. That does include some of the additional sales tax that were over budgeted that we pay out to the municipalities.
Okay. Questions from legislators? Thank you very much.
All right, happy holidays. everybody.
Thank you, happy holidays.
All right, next up, Paul Wiley, Director of Real Property. Letter A is a resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Finance for the County of Orange to make refunds or corrections of taxes in the amount of $2,500 or less. Motion and a second, please. Heinz Tortel. This is, again, something we do every year.
Yes, thank you for allowing me to present this. This is something that we do every year, and it is just allowing us to not have to present everything to the legislature if it's under $2,500 in a correction of error.
Okay.
The way of streamlining processes.
Exactly. Questions from legislators? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. On to deed sales. Motion and a second for discussion. A second. Paul.
Okay, so this month we have 4 bids on properties, and I'm going to recommend that for the first one, it's in Montgomery. The bid is for $1,000. It's an adjoining property owner to cover $611 in back taxes, penalties, and interest. This lot is has a fair market value according to the assessor of $2,000. It is smaller than required by zoning. So it, if it were to be used for anything, it would require variances. I would recommend that we accept this, this bid.
Which person is the adjoining prospective owner?
The name of the.
No, on the map.
I'm not sure exactly which one. Yeah, I don't know which owner is which one.
Okay.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm not sure exactly which owner it is that's,
Okay.
that's bidding.
I just didn't know if someone was getting a bigger, wider lot or a smaller, long lot.
Right, not positive about that. Sorry about that.
Okay, that's right. Okay, any questions on number one? All right, number two?
Number two is a property in the town of Mount Hope. And this one has back taxes of $2,192. We had put a minimum bid on this at the auction of 2,000. And so now we're getting a bid of 2,000, which is close to the back taxes, penalties and interest. Again, this is a lot 80 by 100 feet. It's in a zoning, RP2 zoning, which requires 2-acre minimum. This lot is only 8,000 square feet, so it's significantly smaller than required by zoning. It is also on an unpaved street, so it does not look like it could be easily developed or used for anything. This bid is almost covers the taxes, as I said, so I would recommend that we accept this one. I'm not sure if the property has too much use to too many other people.
And that this was in Guymar, so it should be right near the river and major floodplain?
It quite possibly is. It didn't show up in my maps as being wetland or floodplain, but it is near there.
Questions? Mr.
So
Cheney?
you said that the road is unpaved. Is it, so it's not been accepted for dedication, so the property doesn't have frontage on a road?
On a regular public street, correct.
So it's on a private road. Thank you.
Are these really paper streets in some way?
There may be some form of paper street, although there looks to be an actual like road surface there of some degree that people are using as some form of access, but it's not a regular paved street that I can see from aerial photos.
Okay. Questions from legislators? All right, number three.
Third property is in Newburgh, town of Newburgh, and it's a property that has a back taxes of $22,000, $22,074. We had put a minimum bid of $30,000 on this for the auction, and this bid is for only $5,000. I would recommend that we don't accept this. The parcel is 20.6 acres. It does have some wetlands, but in my maps, it looks to be that it could well be developed. So I would recommend that we hold out for more money from someone else. 20.6 acres.
Looks like it's right behind my cousin's house.
Don't know about that, but it's crossed by a power line, and wetlands that are on the site go narrow strip that goes right north to south down across the middle of the property. But that doesn't mean that it couldn't be developed in front of or behind the wetlands.
Yeah, you make a bridge somehow over the top of it, put a tube, you know.
And it has extensive frontage, so it could be could be divided. So I would suggest holding out on and looking for a higher bid.
Okay. Questions from legislators? All right, on to four.
Fourth property is in Woodbury. This is an odd, narrow, trapezoidal, triangular shaped lot that has a it's between Estrada Road and the thruway, basically. And it doesn't have much depth, doesn't have much utility or much use. The fair market value, according to the assessor, is $1,500. Back taxes on this one of $1,684. We're getting a bid for $2,100. I recommend that we accept this bid.
Wow.
What's this lot size?
I'm sorry?
What's this lot size? I'm sorry,
No, that's good.
I couldn't hear him. You said the lot size and I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
370 by 570.
It says 370 by 570, but I didn't say because when I tried to calculate it, it works out to about 0.31 of an acre. But I'm not exactly positive because I don't have all the dimensions and I didn't plot the deed. But the shape file in our GIS system is 0.31 of an acre.
So it's on the edge of the right of way of the throughway,
Like a throughway, yes.
right near Estrada Road. Not much utility there.
Not much. Zoning is OP, which is office park. I was trying to figure out what property could possibly be used for. Even something like a billboard is an outdoor display would be an accessory use that would be allowable, but only if the municipality allowed it.
Okay. You wonder whether they know. All right. Any questions from legislators? All right, so hearing none, the motion will be to accept the recommendation for sale of properties 1, 2, and 4. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. See you Thursday.